This is the new version of the YT Decoy SN launched last year. It's got 29-inch wheels front and rear, it's short to travel, but it's still got the Fazua Ride 60 motor. So let's stick it on the scales, measure the travel and geo, and see what YT has done to transform an e-Capra into an e-Jeffsy. So last year, YT launched the Decoy SN MX, which is their kind of enduro mid-power e-bike. Had 165mm of travel, had 170mm fork up front, had MX wheels. It was a big burly like bike park bruiser, and also meant for like big alpine terrain. So I'm going to have a quick look around this bike to see what they've changed, because this is very much more a trail build, even though the frame is the same and the motor is the same, or mostly the same. We'll get to that in a minute. One of the obvious differences on this bike is it's got a 29-inch rear wheel. The other bikes are 27.5 mullet bike, this is 29-inch. I would imagine they've changed the chainstay length to accommodate that, but we'll find out in a minute when I measure it. But obviously a 29-inch rear wheel is going to roll better, it's going to be a little bit better for just general all-purpose trail riding. So one of the obvious things they've done is reduce the fork to like a trail fork rather than an enduro fork. I'm going to look at the back of this, tell me what the travel is on it. And it's a 160mm travel Lyric, so it's a 35mm chassis instead of 38, and instead of 170mm travel, it's 160mm travel. So on the shock front, it's still got a piggyback shock. I'm not sure what the travel is on this, but I know that the old bike had a 65mm stroke shock. This one's got a 57.5, so I'm guessing it's going to be around 20 to 25mm less travel than the MX bike. So around about, I'd say 140 to 145mm, but we're going to measure it in a minute to find out. So to keep the costs down, they've kept the front triangle the same, but they will have had to do some jiggery-pokery with the back end to accommodate the 29-inch rear wheel and to make sure the geometry is optimised so the BB's not too tall and stuff. So my guess is, being a 4-bar link, that they've made some new seat stays for this bike, maybe a new link, not sure. I'm going to have to delve into that in the press pack. But I know that the front triangle's the same, pretty sturdy. It's got the Fazua Ride 60 motor in there, and it's got the new 480 watt-hour battery. So that's 50 watt-hours more than the old one. So around about 10% more range. Another new part from Fazua is this new ring control. It's more robust, it's more compact than the old one. Doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart in 5 minutes. And it's got an extra button down here. I'm not sure what they do yet, but we'll have a look later on. Right, let's stick this on the scales. So that's 20.1 kilos. The Decoy SN MX that I tested last year was 21.1 kilos in the same frame size. So it's only 1 kilo less, considering that bike had a coil shock, it had a 38 fork, it had Maven brakes, so some much bigger parts. But this has got a bigger rear wheel on it, and that will add a bit of weight. But yeah, I kind of expected it to be a little bit lighter than that. So that's the weight. Let's go and measure the travel and the geo. Head angle measured at 63.6 degrees in the steep position. I'm just going to check what YT says it is on their geometry chart. 64.4 it says, so it's 0.8 of a degree slacker. Right, wheelbase now. It's always a bit of a stretch for me. I haven't got the longest wingspan. So that is 1267. We'll do the chainstay, but more accurately the rear centre, because it's slightly above the BB. So if we can see, we're about, the axles are about 20mm above the BB, so it's going to be to here, 450mm. So BB height now, I've got to get really low down for this one. 329. So now I'm going to do the reach, and I'm going to take the measurement from the wall to the BB and then the wall to the top of the head tube, and I'm going to take them away from each other. -722, 476 reach. So now that is the maximum effective reach, but when you, in the real world, you've got this top cap here, which once you add it onto the stack height, it's actually going to take away a little bit from the reach. So if you really want to know what the actual reach is on this bike, it is, so it's going to be 8mm less. So if we've got 476 to the top of the frame at the head tube, once we add in the top cap, we're taking away about 8mm from that measurement. So we're actually looking at 468 reach, really, in the real world. I measured all the geo now. Let's see how my measurements compare to YT's. So head angle is 0.8 degrees slacker on my bike. The effective seat angle is about the same, a little bit steeper. The chainstay, fraction longer, but it depends how you measure it. The wheelbase is a couple of millimeters longer on my bike than they say. BB height is quite a lot lower on my bike than they say. So I measured 329mm, they reckon it's 337. There's quite a big difference there. And 329 is a really low BB. And the other one to compare is reach, and YT says it's 477mm on the frame size large. I measured 476, so it's pretty much bang on. But there is a flip chip on this bike, so I'm going to switch it into the low position and see how that affects the numbers. Bike's now in the low position. See what the head angle and the BB height are now. So with the bike in the low position now, we've got a 63.3 degree head angle, and the BB height has dropped to 325. So that's an extremely low BB. Head angle's pretty slack considering this is kind of a trail bike. So yeah, definitely very YT numbers. So considering how low the BB is, the cranks are 160s. So I think actually YT could have gone for 155s on there just to give a little bit more pedal clearance. Right, I'm just going to make a note of the shock pressure before I let all the air out, so I know what to get it back to afterwards. So we're at 173. So I'm just going to slide the O-ring up before I completely bottom the shock out, just so we know exactly how much stroke there is. Right, that's fully bottomed out. I'm going to measure the perpendicular distance from the centre of the axle up to the spirit level. And I'm going to measure it again, just in case, because I don't want to have to go through this all again. I'd say that's 527. Now obviously I don't usually use a track pump to pump up the shock, but in this instance, when you're measuring the travel, it just makes things a bit quicker when you get in the air and back in there to measure that full extension. Now I've got the shock pump on, there's already 90 PSI in there, so all I need to do, I'll get it up to 176 that was in there before, and I won't equalise the positive and negative, so it'll be fully topped out. So shock's fully topped out, we're at maximum potential travel now, so I'm going to go and measure it at full extension. So we're going to go 657 minus 527, 130 mil. I think it's a 140 bike. So I've just had a look at YT's spec sheet, and this bike is supposed to be 140 mil rear travel. So somewhere along the lines we've lost 10 mil of travel. It's always the way with these things. So I'm just going to check that I'm getting full shock stroke out of this, because usually that's where the problem lies. Instead of having 57.5 mil stroke out of the shock, we're getting 54. So that's where we're losing our travel. Now, you saw me ratchet the hell out of that when I measured it, so I'm pretty sure we're at bottom out. So yeah, I think if this shock was getting the full 57.5 mil stroke, then we'd be getting 140 out of this bike. So I need to find out what's up with this shock, whether it's just a tolerance issue or whether it's got a volume reducer in there or something. This is not the first bike I've had where I've measured the travel and it hasn't quite had what it says, and that's been down to the shock stroke being shorter than claimed. So there's the weights, measurements, travel on this new YT Decoy SN MX I. I think some interesting takeaways. For a trail bike, this is really slack and it's really low. So if you like a low BB, this is a sick bike. It's got the Fazua motor, which obviously hasn't got the best reputation for reliability, but we know that it's got a brilliant range. It's got the new bigger battery, and so that range is going to be even better now. So if we add another 10% onto what we've achieved in our range tests, you're going to be looking probably at about 1,300 meters climbing in the highest power mode on this bike. We've got the new ring controller here, which feels a lot more robust and nicer to use than the old one. And what I find interesting is that YT has taken a frame that they've applied to a really hard-hitting, like heavy-duty, solid enduro bike that you can absolutely slam round turns and hit massive jumps on in a bike park. And they've twisted it and they've like chucked it in the blender, and what's come out is a completely different bike, like basically a trail e-bike that's going to be hopefully more fun on flat trails like single track, mellower gradients, a bit more versatile, will cover ground more efficiently. So if you want to read about my first ride impressions on this bike, they're live now. Head over to mbr.co.uk and you can find out exactly what I thought about the ride on this bike.